Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! So this was told to me by my dad over a drink recently. He got a little drunk and ended up admitting it to me, saying it's been too long now and he'd paid the consequences, so there was nothing to come back to him. Uncle Mark was my favorite uncle when I was a child. He always invited me around to show me his airsoft gun collection, hide-and-seek parties with my friends, and even took us to the beach. He would always come with sweets for us and acted like one of us, another child who just wanted to have fun. But then that day I, 7 years old, was meant to be going around because we were going for a ride to this amazing place. My dad was happy and cheerful for the entire day. He was going on about how much he loved the fact that his brother wanted to be in his children's life, until he got a call. I was in my room packing my stuff when I heard a most blood-curdling scream from my dad. He was screaming and raging. I heard him rip open our front door and slam it back shut with enough force to make the picture next to it fall off the wall. I did not see my dad for a long while after that, and he never told me why until we had this talk. But that shall be explained at the end. Mom had a lot of money saved up from a minor lotto win, so we were okay, and she always smiled and said, "Daddy is just away for a little while because he was looking after me and my siblings." That was her answer whenever I asked where he was. Uncle Mark did not come around either during this time, but we did see him in town a couple times. Funnily enough, he ran away the moment my mom saw me waving at him. 9 months later, Dad came home and I excitedly ran and hugged him. We had a party to celebrate him coming home. We had a party, food and cake and all the usual stuff. I was just happy my dad was home though. A week or so later, Dad sat me down with the other children and explained that Uncle Mark wouldn't be coming around anymore. When I asked him why, he just said Uncle Mark was a bad person, that if he ever tried to talk to us again, we were to ignore him and come find one of them. We all agreed because my dad always knew best after all. One day, a year or so later, I was 9 at this point, I'm coming out of school to wait for my parents to pick me up. My other siblings were either at secondary school or too young for school, so it was just me. I see Uncle Mark standing there with a big grin. I get nervous when he comes up to me, saying he's here to take me for a ride. I tell him I'm not supposed to talk to him, that he's a bad person like my dad said. And Uncle Mark got this scary look on his face for a second, then told me it was all good and his parents had changed their mind and made to take my hand. And that's when I saw my dad just appear. My dad punched Uncle Mark right in the face and little old me saw blood fly as Uncle Mark went sprawling. I did not see much after that except Uncle Mark running away with my dad chasing after him. He came back after a little while, sighed and took me in a hug. He told my mom to take me home and that he'd see us later. I don't know why, but I knew there and then it would be a long time before I ever saw my dad again. It took about 2 weeks till he came back. My mom eventually admitted to us that he was in prison for protecting us, and we all guessed he'd done something to Uncle Mark. And he had. Turns out Uncle Mark liked kids. He liked them a lot, and that day I was meant to go to his house. My aunt, Uncle Mark's wife, had called my dad and told him she'd found some disturbing things under her and Mark's bed of children, and she was scared of what to do because Mark was a big man, and it was later revealed he abused her, so she was scared to call the police on him. And my dad had gone into a rage and stormed over to his house. He'd smashed in the door to find Uncle Mark screaming at my aunt. My dad had beaten Uncle Mark within an inch of his life. Uncle Mark screaming he'd make him pay as the police had arrested my dad. While my dad was explaining why he had done it, Mark tried to get the pictures and hide them, and he managed to do so. My dad was taken to the station for assault but made sure my other uncles and older cousins were around to protect us in case Mark came back. But oh no. Mark waited until my dad thought we were safe, and then according to my dad, they had come to kidnap me from the school right under their noses. Who would stop him? People didn't believe my dad when he explained Mark was a predator. They thought he was just excusing himself for attacking him. After all, the police hadn't found anything, whereas my dad was a big angry guy with a few assaults under his belt already. So all they saw was my nice uncle here to pick me up. He had gotten away from my dad at the school. My dad had tripped and it gave him the chance to run. But my dad knew where he would go. Knew Uncle Mark would run home to hide and more than likely destroy any evidence he had gotten since destroying the last lot. He also knew the police would be on his tail for the attack on the school, so he didn't have long. The difference was though my dad had his car while Uncle Mark was on foot. So he drove over and demanded to know if my aunt was going to lie again, after what Uncle Mark had just tried to pull. In that moment she really realized what a monster my uncle was. He was willing to do this to her nephew just for pathetic revenge for being called out as a predator. My dad ordered her to get all the evidence she could as he waited for Mark to appear. She came back down with pictures and he then told her to go. Wait 1 hour and then call the police. He was ending this. And as Uncle Mark appeared, my dad, who had been waiting behind the wall of his garden, slammed him through the door of his house, and then proceeded to beat him up, then tie him down till the police got there. The police came towards my father right away and my father did not resist when it was revealed that Uncle Mark was indeed a predator who had attempted to kidnap me, and the fact that they had to face the fact that they had allowed a predator to run free. He was let go. His lawyer stating my father had gone into a protective rage and had only intended to render him harmless. Funny enough, no one argued in defense of the predator for my dad getting the assault charges dismissed. Uncle Mark got 20 years in jail, but he didn't live to finish them. He died 15 years into it. No one in my family raised a finger for his passing. My dad said he didn't regret it, but that he wished he had done something else purely so that he didn't put me in such danger in the first place. I told him I was forever going to be proud of him for that, and that I loved him. I was a bit shocked I wasn't told just what Uncle Mark was for so long, but my dad asked if it would have made it any better to be told as a child what he really was, or now as a man who can handle the truth, and he was right. Me as a child would not have been able to mentally handle it. I am barely able to handle it now. Next story. I work at a medium-sized international airport as a police officer. When airlines have issues getting flights out due to things outside of the local agent's control like weather, we usually get a few hateful customers that we end up dealing with. This one is so far from the top of the pile. So this airline, Directional Air, had a glitch on their system computers following a storm. This caused planes across the country to be grounded, cancelled, and delayed by hours or days. At the ticket counter, there is a line of customers, around 60 or so, that are affected by this and patiently waiting to be rebooked. At the same time, frustrating, many of them are understanding. Kevin, who walks to the front of the line in front of all of the other customers, shoves a lady being helped currently at the counter who is disabled and in a wheelchair and demands to be assisted. The agent politely tells Kevin that he will need to wait his turn at the back. Kevin yells at the agent that he's a priority passenger and A-listed. And the agent again tells Kevin that he will need to wait. Kevin pulls a carrying card and demands the manager. Other passengers tell Kevin to go to the back, and he starts to argue and yells with them and gets in their faces. The manager comes out and tells Kevin to go to the back or to leave. Kevin doubles down and yells at the manager. At this point, other agents have contacted me and the OFC about the situation. A male passenger who is 6-something lean and mean steps up and gets Kevin to stop yelling at everyone else and focus on him till we arrive. Kevin tells us that he was polite and that it was the airline personnel yelling and cursing and that the other passenger had threatened him. Cell phones and CCTV tell another story. Kevin insisted that the other witness and the footage are lying and that he's telling the truth. He then tries to intimidate us by asking for our names and badge numbers and knowing our boss, yada yada yada. This is common for people with nothing else to go on. The manager tells us that Kevin will not ever fly with them and is blacklisted. Something airlines have, that all airlines share about problem passengers. Kevin is told he will need to leave and he thinks the police are the new group to argue with. After being given warnings to leave or be removed, Kevin continues to argue with us and refuses to leave. He's arrested and taken to the nearest station. Come to find out, Kevin is the owner of a local hotel, not like a chain but a nice hotel, and he thinks he has influence. Currently, he has an orange and black suit and shiny bracelets. Next story. I was told this story secondhand, but given what I know about the main players involved, I can definitely believe this happened. Here are the key players. Mom, the hero of the story. Dad, my father. Entitled Grandma, Dad's mother. Entitled Grandpa, Dad's father. Yes, he is just as bad as Entitled Grandma. My cool grandma, Mom's mom. And for the most part, Mom has gotten along with my entitled grandparents to some extent. But Mom isn't a pushover. What went down? The details are fuzzy on this part, but what I do know is that my mom got into an argument with my grandma over something so stupid, Mom doesn't even remember what it was about. Anyways, entitled Grandma gets really mad and storms off. Next thing they know, Dad gets a call from his business from one of their workers. Entitled Grandpa, who works at the business as an employee, has been cussing about my cool grandma to anyone who will listen, like using really angry vulgar language. Mom and Dad eventually figure out it's related to the argument Mom and entitled Grandma had, and that she must have told my entitled grandpa. Dad confronts his mom, as she swears to God she never said anything to my entitled grandpa. Entitled Grandma says that she didn't even talk to the entitled grandpa that day. The catch? At the time, my parents were paying the entitled grandparents' phone bill. Sensing something was up, Mom looked up the bill and sure enough, entitled Grandma called the entitled grandpa minutes after she stormed out of the house. Entitled Grandma is a holier-than-thou Catholic. Dad was heartbroken because he realized she blatantly lied to him and brought religion into it when she swore to God, and Mom was furious. Not because Grandma and Grandpa talked about her, but because the entitled Grandpa spoke so horribly about the cool Grandma, who wasn't even there. Cue the revenge. The next time the entire family gathered, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it, my mom brought up the argument again. Both grandparents deny it, of course, and start getting defensive. Mom then brings in her laptop with the phone bill information on it and says to the entitled grandma, "You didn't talk to entitled grandpa, huh? You swore to God you didn't." Then what's this? From the recounting of the tale, Mom says the entitled grandma and grandpa had serious oh no looks on their faces. Mom cut off their attempts to talk, calling them out to not just lying to their son, who completely backed up Mom, but for saying horrible things about my cool grandma. Mom then plants a laptop on the room's main table for everyone to see, and tells the room, first addressing my aunts and uncles, "Look at your mother." The liar. Everyone had a chance to look at it. And I don't think anyone tried to defend the entitled grandparents for their actions. And after that, both of them ended up apologizing for it. Seriously, I love my mom. Next story. My youngest brother Shadow, 7 years old, and our two young cousins can't think of nicknames, so Thing 1, 6 years old, and Thing 2, 4 years old, we were watching Cocoon. I, 18 years old, was babysitting. Shadow and Thing 1 really liked scary movies, but I didn't think Cocoon would be too scary for Thing 2. It wasn't. Shadow and Thing 1 thought it was really funny to scare Thing 2 and did it frequently, regardless of how often I told them to knock it off. Eventually, I shut it off. Told him I had to drive Things 2 and 1 to Grandma's where they were staying. She lived only 2 houses away, but I also had to drive my brother's girlfriend Dune home on the other side of town. Shadow went everywhere with me. That's how he got his nickname. So I asked him to come along. At the very beginning of Dune's road was an open field, and I pulled in and turned the car off. I told Dune to play along. After about 5 minutes, Shadow asked why we were parked in the field. I told him we were waiting another couple minutes go by. Same question. Same answer. After a while, he asked what we were waiting for. So I told him that many years ago we were sent by our planet to find a human child to bring back. And we chose him. He freaked. But we just stayed and told him we were waiting for our spaceship to pick us all up. Now he really freaked. He cried and begged us to take him back to the house. At that point I said being scared is no fun, and Thing 2 was too little to be scared the way Shadow and Thing 1 had done. I asked if he was going to scare her again, and he said he wouldn't do that anymore. At which point I started the car, took Dune home, and told him that I just wanted him to feel what he had made Thing 2 feel. We weren't really from another planet. He learned his lesson and never scared him again. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.